Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about The Elder Scrolls, Betrayal of the Second Era, published by Chip Theory Games. And thank you to Chip Theory Games for sending me this early copy of the game in order to make this video. I will point out that this is almost exactly what people are going to get. There's a few things that are different here and there, a few things in the rulebook that aren't finished yet, but for all intents and purposes, this is the game that everyone's going to be receiving. Now, what this game is, this is an adventure, tactical combat, RPG style game based in the world of Elder Scrolls. And there are a ton of different regions you can play in. For example, right here I have Eastern Skyrim. On the other side here, we have Western Skyrim. You have Black Marshes, you have Morrowind, etc., etc., etc. A whole bunch of different places that you have and that you can play against. And as you're going through the game, you'll be leveling up your character, which means you'll be getting new skills, you'll be getting new loot, you'll be getting new powers as you advance through a several session, or you can do it all at once, adventure through your chosen realm. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played and want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's very briefly talk about how this game is played. And I'm going to basically give the very bare bones of how this game works because there's a lot going on. For example, just the tutorial guide is a good 40 some odd pages long. Yeah, yes, as you see, exactly 39 pages long. And then the rule book itself is also very, very, very thick. So there's a lot of stuff happening here, and I just want to give you the broad overview of how it's going to work. I will also point out that you see some cool little toys here. You see this little magnetic little dial thingy here. This comes in the base game, as do these trays here, like this little organizer, as well as a bunch of these trays here, which you can cover up and then save your progress. Now, as I said, each time you play, you will pick a region and get the gazetteer that comes with it. Now, and as part of that, you'll be selecting as you go through various quests that you're going to be able to do. And they might be quests based on the board here where you go, or they might be something like this one here, where it's going to tell you where you need to go on the map, and when you get there, you'll have some kind of adventure. And so here we have our map here, and what's going to happen is on any given turn you'll be moving around to different regions, and you're going to have X amount of days to accomplish your quests. And as you go to different places, there might be specific things that happen based on where you are, as I showed you before, or you might be going on and touching upon these different symbols that are here, and that's going to mean there might be some kind of event. It might be an unstable location like it is right here, which means you roll the die, and that's going to tell you, oh, you're going to have a clash, oh, you're going to have a conflict event, or maybe you'll have a peaceful event, and you'll see those on the board as well. And what those are referring to is each time you start, you're going to make a deck of these cards here. For example, here is a peaceful and a conflict event. And as you can see, you have some story there. And then when you flip them to the back, it's going to tell you what is going to happen. In this case, you'd have a choice to make, no combat, or it might be something like this, which is some kind of combat encounter. And every time you play, you'll make a slightly different set of these two cards, and they will be shuffled up. So again, there will be variety every time you go through. You might be going to town where you'll be able to buy equipment and do other town type things, but really the core of this game is going to come when you are doing various types of combat. And there's a couple of types of combat that you might have. You might have a very simple clash, which means you're going to wind up with just a couple of tiles set up right at the beginning, and there'll be a set number of baddies that are going to be on there, and you'll go through and you'll fight. Or what I find I do most often are these delve quests, where you start out with just a simple base tile, and as you're going through, you wind up drawing these delve cards here, and as you flip them over, they're telling you what type of location you have found. And there's various rules to what it is that you're going to find on the locations, but depending on player count, you'll have there'll be different things there, but perhaps most importantly, you're looking for these gems. And in general, you're looking for 3 of these gems. After you find 3 locations with those gems on them, that's going to be when you're able to finish that particular delve. And the other thing you can face are quests that are very simply a set map, and it tells you exactly what's out there, where the bad guys are, where the loot might be, and so on and so on. And again, to avoid spoiling anything, this is just kind of random things that I've placed out there. In addition to that, you're going to have a series of different types of baddies that will be in the 1 through 5 bag or the 10 through 20 bag. And as you go through, you'll be drawing them out and placing them out onto the board. And we'll just throw a couple of those out there. And then, of course, in chip theory fashion, you will put their health beneath them. These white ones here represent 5 health. So and then our heroes would be starting over here on this entrance tile, again with whatever their health happens to be. And now this is where things get a little bit interesting. Each hero as you start is going to have set statistics, like this right here. Oh, and I have the wrong face set up there. There we go. In this case, I have my health, my stamina, my magicka, my combat, and my cooldown. Now, what that's going to mean is my stamina is going to be, as in Too Many Bones, how many spaces you can move. It's also going to be how many dice you can roll. Again, very familiar to anyone who's played Too Many Bones before. And as it goes with those, you'll be selecting various dice. And as with Too Many Bones, you'll be able to select which type of dice you want to use, whether basic combat dice or dice that have to do with your particular stance. And your stance is something that you're going to pick at the beginning of each round. You'll decide, well, nope, I'm going to do this destruction staff, which means I can utilize these right here. But as you play through the game, you'll be able to unlock new types of fighting styles. So perhaps I pick up this one right here, which is two-handed fighting, and that will allow me to get more dice here. Now what's important here is what you're seeing is, depending on where I put these abilities, it's going to change how I can level things up. As you get XP, the number on the left here is what it costs to place a new die that relates to that on this side, and the number on the right here is coming the other way. So what that's saying is, if I were to give myself another health like this, well then I'd be up to 5 health. However, it means I'd be limited to only 1, 2, 3, 4 more dice here. You can see with my magicka line here and my destruction staff, I can only get 2 more dice. Or if I were to take this and put it down here, you'd see that now I can actually only get a total of 3 dice here. And you get the idea. So it's a balance as you're going back and forth. You also have this stat down here, your tenacity, and as that moves up, you're going to be using that to activate various powers that have to do with your class. And you can see all of them right here, and these can level up and become more powerful as well. And depending on which stance you're using, which abilities you're using, you'll have different options here with your dice. So based on my stance, if I were to choose to use my 3 stamina to roll these 3 dice, 2 destruction staff, and then 1 regular combat die, well then I would have here, I've simply done 1 damage for this one here. You'll notice that he has 2 armor, while both of these right here are going to do 2 damage. So in this case, I've done a total of 5 damage, which would almost take him out with his 2 armor. Then, when that's done, these dice that I've used are going to go down here to the bottom of my board. And now those are in cooldown. And you have your cooldown stat, which is going to allow you to recover dice out of there each round. And so the higher up you advance that stat, the more you're able to use as many of your special dice as you want each round. Additionally, there are various things that might just put straight up fatigue dice into your queue there, which is basically kind of clogging you up a little bit, but that's kind of the main idea of how that works. And as you're playing through your quest, you'll be getting new items, you'll be leveling up, you'll be getting new items, and there are a whole bunch of different types of items that you're able to get. There's a lock-picking mini game that's there as well, but you're going to be moving through basically 3 acts. And you have a little bit of variety in the first 2 acts, and then the final act is going to be a set kind of boss fight that you're building up to you're able to deal with. And of course, it wouldn't be an adventure RPG game without side quests. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of side quests that you can get. They're all different. You're going to go different places for them, and they'll have different rewards. And the game comes with a whole bunch of different enemies, as you can see here, and it comes with a bunch of different races and classes that you can play. All of them have their own unique chips, and there are 4 different options as to which gender you would like to play and whether you want to be more physical or more Magely, etc., etc. And of course, it wouldn't be a Chip Theory Games game without a whole bunch of keywords, as you can see right there. But really, that's the very, 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 very high overview of how this game works. So with that said, what do I like about this game? First off, it is a Chip Theory game, which means the production's amazing. And again, the production is fantastic. And also the things that they have thought of, the things that they've added into the box, just kind of as a quality of life upgrade, I think are fantastic. I'm thinking in particular about the little trays that you can put on top of your player mats and just kind of lock things in as a way to kind of save it and bring it back out later. And I just really like that because it does help keep the game in a state where you can set it up quicker when you're coming back to the game. And in the same vein, there is the tray system that it has where it just tells you exactly where to put all the cards, exactly how to set them up, and it saves a whole bunch of space on the table. And again, that just comes right in the box. I think that's really good as well. Obviously, the cards and the neoprene and the dice and all of that is just exceptional, exceptional quality. Next thing I'm going to say is there is so much game in here because there are so many different regions that you can go to and you can play in. Yet at the same time, it's very much a sandbox and you're kind of moving all around the board and doing all kinds of different things, and you have complete freedom when it comes to making your character and leveling up your character and what direction you go. And it just really, really nails that sandbox feeling that I think this game is going for. And because of that, you have a lot of replay value, again, because of all the different regions, because of all the different types of characters, and because of all the different ways you can build those characters, but it's not going to feel like you're rehashing the same thing over and over again because there are just so many options in what is relatively a small box. Don't get me wrong, this is a very big box, but it's not a huge box. And I think there is more gameplay in this large box than you would think from looking at it, which is a crazy thing to say because it's a 22-pound box. The next thing I'll say is this game really most closely resembles Too Many Bones out of all of the games in the Chip Theory Games catalog. And with that being said, it doesn't feel like a rehash. It absolutely feels like an evolution of the Too Many Bones system. And in particular, I think that's because, one, you kind of had this total freedom to kind of build your character like you want, whereas in Too Many Bones are set by character, you build a specific character like you want, but this you can make whatever you want. But also, it has this very interesting system to me of you have abilities on either side of the mat. And as you're building up one, that means you're giving yourself less options with the ability on the other side. And so I find that just fascinating. And what that means is when you think about the replayability is you're getting even more because you can have the exact same initial build and still have a completely different character. And I think that's just really, really clever. I think the exhaustion system down at the bottom of the mat, I think that's really, really inspired. The way you're using dice and they're going away and they're slowly coming back, or maybe you want to boost that so you get all your dice back really quickly. I think the way that you're actually getting to kind of explore a dungeon as you're going through, I think that's really inspired as well. So what you're hearing here is, when I say this is an evolution of Too Many Bones, it's taking a lot of the stuff that Too Many Bones started with this really juicy character building, and it's opened that up. It's now more expansive. It's taken the tactical combat that you have of a Too Many Bones, and it has expanded it because now you're putting down different dungeon rooms, you're kind of moving around through, and different things are showing up in the dungeon rooms. Which brings me to the next thing. I think the core dice combat is very, very satisfying. The way you're using your, and the term for it is escaping me, but you're powering up your abilities, you're able to use those, and how you're able to continually increase those as you go through. I think that's really, really clever. But most importantly, I think the AI is really clean and really easy to operate for every single bad guy that you're facing, which keeps the game moving. I think a game like this that is so complex, having a simple and easy to understand AI is really, really valuable. And then the last thing I want to say is, it's just fun. It is just a fun game if you're into crunchy dungeon crawl adventures. So what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first one is there is a huge overload of rules that you have to internalize to be able to play this game. It's just so much going on in this game. It is overwhelming. It literally took me about 4 weeks to feel comfortable enough to just play the game. Now, to be fair, part of that is I was exceedingly busy coming back from Gen Con, but still, it took a long time for me to feel comfortable enough to feel like, okay, now I'm starting to get the flow of this game. And you're probably going to run into that. There's lots of keywords, different abilities, how do they work, how does this happen, how do I make my character, oh, I'm in this region, what is that region, what do all these cards mean, which cards do I put, like, there's so much stuff going on, which makes for this huge, big, bold, exciting world, but it's hard to get in that first time, and that's just something you have to kind of work your way through as you're diving into this game. And then the only other thing that I'm going to highlight here is something that I think will only be true for some people. I often find that absolute freedom can be absolutely limiting, and I think in the way you're building characters, that is true here. It is often such a hard choice to figure out what it is you want to do as you're leveling yourself up, because it has huge repercussions, because if you add another health point, well, that means that your archery skill is now never going to be as good as maybe it could be. And some of these effects can feel really far reaching, because suddenly way down the road you're like, oh my gosh, I just needed one more of these things and I'm never going to get it because I made this bad choice 6 hours ago. And I think that's part of the joy of the game, is kind of puzzling that out and figuring out what it is that you're trying to build, how you want this character to work, and then of course how to use the character that you have or how they interact with the other characters that you're playing with. But it's not easy and it can feel overwhelming. And that's just, again, like with the rule set, is something you're just going to have to kind of dig into and understand. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is, I think there is a particular reward for people who are familiar with the Elder Scrolls universe, and I am not. And so I look at some of these creatures and some of the regions, and it means nothing to me. And I still think the game is fun, but I do constantly feel like, man, if I knew a little bit about this stuff, I'd probably be enjoying it more. And that's a very quibbly quibble. But again, just something for everyone to kind of understand, because this game is not going to kind of make you understand the entire world. Like, you don't need it, because I'm enjoying it and I don't need it. But if you really want to kind of dig in and fully understand everything, then, well, that's going to take a little bit of research you're going to have to do outside. And so I throw that in there simply because I don't have a lot to complain about. The only other thing that I can toss out there really is just, which is obvious now, this is a very heavy dungeon crawler. Is it the heaviest one on my shelf? No, that still probably goes to Madara or Dungeon Universalis, but it's up there. It's a lot. But if that's what you're looking for, then you're really going to enjoy this one. I think if you like the Elder Scrolls world and you like heavy dungeon crawls and you don't have this, then you have made a huge mistake, because it's a delight, especially once you've played it enough that you can just kind of dig in and you know what you're doing and you're cooking and you're moving. It just takes a little while to get there. But there you have it, folks. That is Elder Scrolls. As always, if I've made any mistakes in the very high-level overview I gave you at the beginning, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp. I'll get that in the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.